The ancient Greeks used to think the gods manipulated their life down on the earth, and the gods were just big people, you know, looking down and saying, you go there and you go there, and this is your destiny. So perhaps I have a Zeus complex.
Little clay figures of dinosaurs and people that would completely imitate my storyboards, but flesh out my storyboards and give them dimension. Phil Tippett had perfected the motion blur, which gave Go Motion a closer resemblance to real life. But it wasn't 100%. It was still jerky. And Phil did a whole bunch of wonderful blur motions on a T-Rex running, on a raptor running. I come home with my kids and look at this stuff over and over and over again. And my kids bought it. They said, wow, Dad, a real dinosaur. But I still saw the jerk. The movement was very accurate and very rhythmical, but there was still something a bit Go Motion-y about it.
My earliest memory of seeing stop motion on film, the now classic Aardman animation, Wallace and Gromit's The Wrong Trousers.
Personal favourite is when they go to the moon, the very first one, but yeah, that is pretty much everyone's favourite, isn't it? The Wrong Trousers with the pesky penguin.
Feathers McGraw. Do you know what? I got confused there. I forgot about A Grand Day Out, which was the first one.
Fucking brilliant.
Obviously, back then, with the advancements of everything, if you watch it back now, you're kind of like, it looks a bit cheap compared to advancements now, but it was cool as hell.
I think it's kind of its charm that it has that weird cheap aesthetic, because they've obviously got way bigger budgets nowadays. They actually use a bit of CGI to help it out at times, but they obviously keep the same look. It's not like the early horrible 5-minute vignettes that The Simpsons would have on the Jay Leno show compared to how glossy and well done it was. They've kept it the same. They haven't tried to improve it. South Park's another one, which started off as actual stop motion, intentionally crude, but also crude because they couldn't do anything else, but became quite glossy, whereas they clearly want to keep that look right from the get-go that they had. That was actually a short film that got passed around Hollywood, and George Clooney got his hands on a tape, saw it, and he was basically the guy that got the ball rolling, got actual producers and money behind him to start the show.
It's a bit sad, really. If you watch the new episodes of South Park, you can see that it's all computer animation now. You're bang on. It loses some of that charm.
There's something about, and this applies to all stop motion, it's the same thing we always say about practical effects, where even when your mind goes, that's a guy in a suit, or that's a piece of rubber, or that's a puppet / claymation model that is being slightly moved and obviously is probably like only a foot tall, even though it's supposed to be a 1,000-foot tall monster Jason and the Argonauts are running from. Your brain recognizes what it is, but when it also recognizes that you can physically reach out and touch it. That is a physical thing. Even if it's like, I recognize that's fur, even if it's fake fur. I've seen fake fur before. My brain recognizes that pattern. That might be a model metal giant walking quadrupedal futuristic laser beam shooting behemoth in Empire Strikes Back. But I know that's a physical thing, even in its model form. My brain pattern recognizes it. It's like the opposite of the uncanny valley in a way with CGI, where some of the best CGI looks so real, but you just know it's not. There's something weird and untangible about it. It's kind of similar to the experience you can have in real life where, you know, seeing something on film or on camera or an image or photography or whatever can never do anything justice. Like, you could see the most beautiful still image of a whole constellation, thousands of galaxies in the one photo, and you're like, wow, that looks cool. But if you just look up on a clearish night, it doesn't need to be the Keck Observatory in Hawaii or in the middle of the desert in Chile. Just a few stars. There's something about it untangible where you see it in person, and it's kind of similar to that feeling. You can see it's real.
I keep going back to Aardman Animation and Wallace and Gromit because obviously we are British. I think Aardman Animation are legendary in their field and they're legendary all over the world. To see Nick Park with the actual models of Wallace and Gromit and Feathers McCraw and doing the changes to it, like moving their arms up and down for each scene, it was just so great to watch. I know in theory how they do it, but to see it with my own eyes, I just found it even more incredible. The technique behind it.
It's funny, my nephew, he's only 8, but he's got well into Lego and he's got obsessed with making little films. And first we were making shitty little films where I would be holding the Lego man and getting him to do stuff. And he turned around to me when he was looking at it, looking at the dailies, and he'd be like, "Why's your hand in it?" I just couldn't explain to him, like, my hand, like, I can't not put my hand in it. So I told him about stop motion. Maybe you could do it that way. And he's got obsessed with it. His parents are pissed off because all he wants to do is use their phones to use the little stop motion app I showed him. He comes around for a sleepover and we make a little stop motion film. And it is shocking how long it takes. And bear in mind, we're not really trying to do it that good. Like, I'm not bothered if you see big gaps in between the motion. But even then, it's like, fuck me. I thought I took 1 billion photos to show him walking 3 steps. I thought, if anything, I took too many. And it looks all awkward and janky. And I realised I moved the little Lego board thing they're on slightly and didn't realise. And even that shitty little example, it gives you such insight into how painstaking and hard this is. Such a crazy niche part of filmmaking. Stop motion in general in films, it went through a bunch of different eras. You had early on with King Kong's probably the oldest, still relevant, iconic one. You know, the original 1933 King Kong. I fucking love this. This is when I first kind of realised I must like films on a level other people don't. Because I was sitting watching it and my cousins were around and they just couldn't fathom I wanted to watch this. They were like, it's fucking old. Like, look how stupid King Kong looks. But I just loved it. Everything about it was just brilliant. And the same way the acting's very stagey and theatrical because it's a film from 1933. And the sound's a bit weird in points because it's sound design from 1933. And the music's very generic because it's a musical score from 1933. And I felt like there was fucking maybe 3 music scores in those days. It's all the same shit.
It's like dun 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 dun.
Yeah,
dun.
or ooh, if someone's in love or being nostalgic. And I took the special effects for that as well.
And it's very beautifully made. It has little washers in it so that it doesn't ratchet, and you can move it inch by inch or fraction by fraction. Well, the process is similar to the animated cartoon. Only instead of a flat drawing, you have a 3-dimensional model. Mm-hmm. But the big problem is to keep it synchronized. You have to keep the shoulders and the head all synchronized so that it'll look like he's alive and not just a puppet moving for the sake of moving, you know.
It didn't bother me, and not just didn't it bother me, there's something about it. I just fell in love with it. And, you know, you think people our age, Saturday mornings, Sunday mornings, Jason and the Argonauts, Sinbad and the Seven Seas, you know, just all these wacky old school films where it'd be a white guy in brown person makeup with a turban on, and then he'd go fight some stop motion skeletons, and he would clearly not actually be on the same level as them because they'd never quite overlap with each other. The skeletons would just sort of be waving their swords about and moving all janky, and he'd be kind of like swinging his sword, and then it would cut to a close-up of like a skeleton head going flying off to the side.
Funny story about Jason and the Argonauts. Our younger viewers might not know about this, but we used to have videotapes. I remember watching Jason and the Argonauts, watching the skeletons and, you know, those weird Minotaur creatures. And about a month later, my auntie came round to babysit me and my older brother Paul, and we was only like young. And she says, "You want to watch a film?" So we said, let's watch Jason and the Argonauts. Let's watch. And she says, "I've never seen it before. Like, obviously, please don't say it." Through the whole movie, me and Paul were like, now the skeletons come out.
It's like Medusa and all that fucking
He
stuff.
hits the skeletons down and she's just like, "Oh, yeah, I told you." And then, do you know, like, when you're young, you just like, when you're like infatuated by something, you just can't help but like commentate on it.
You badger people being like, you got to watch this bit if they look away for a second.
But I remember that, and I remember just being enthralled by it. But it's weird because I don't know if it's because we got older, Declan, that if I was to watch it now, I can't seem to get that nostalgia back. It's a bit like you and your cousins watching King Kong. I watch it because I love films, but it's hard to watch the effects. And I think King Kong's a very good example to use if we compare the original stop motion one to the Peter Jackson remake. It's chalk and cheese, isn't it? The elementary stop motion compared to Peter Jackson's one, which is expensive CGI just littered throughout the film. And I liked the King Kong remake. I thought it was fantastic, but if you had one on one side and one on the other, it's insane, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's what, 72 years different, so you'd expect that. But also it's a weird one to compare it to because Peter Jackson is a special effects genius. He knows exactly how to set up every part of the shoot in mind for that. If a director just turns up on set and he's like, okay, I want the light to be cast from over here, but I want it to be completely dark here and also put a silhouette over there. And then he says, that's my vision. And he walks off and the lighting man's scratching his head like, for fuck, like, how am I supposed to do that? And he said, we were only going to do this kind of setup. So I've only got in these types of lights for today and we don't have any filters to do this. And, you know, that's always going to happen with every aspect of filmmaking. When the director makes decisions, everyone else has got to be like, how can we figure this out? Whereas Peter Jackson, he would never tread on the special effects guy's toes because he is the special effects guy. He is the guy. He understands how to do it. Everyone goes on about Avatar, and like I can't say it's bad special effects, I guess, but there's not one second I looked at that film where I was just like, this is a big computery animation-y thing. Whereas King Kong, obviously there's moments where you're like, that's CGI. I believe that was a real world, way more than Avatar. If you watch any of the behind the scenes for both of them, there are virtually no sets. And when there is a set, it's because there's kind of a set because maybe they're sitting in something. But even then, it will just be that. There won't be the room around it or the cockpit or the cabin or whatever they're in. It will just be a green screen. None of it's real. That doesn't surprise me at all when I look at Avatar. When I look at King Kong, I'm always shocked. I would assume that backdrop was a real set. I couldn't believe some of them weren't animatronics. Like usually you can tell straight away, like the original Jurassic Park, as good as the CGI is, you can tell when it's cut to an animatronic. But even still, it doesn't take anything away from the original for me. I fucking love King Kong. I even loved Son of Kong, the awful sequel where they go back to the island and they meet his albino son who's a little bit smaller, and then Skull Island completely collapses in a nice stop motion effect. I love all of them. Mighty Joe Young in 1949. I love it. I love it even throughout the Star Wars era where they used loads of stop motion. And when they were making it, George Lucas had a look and he was like, yeah, it's good, but it's still got that janky Jason and the Argonauts skeletons thing going on. Like, can we get rid of that? Can we do something about that?
And when you get these repeated pictures of still pictures, it gives the illusion of movement. But you have to keep a sense of balance so that if he's on one leg, that he doesn't look like he's going to fall over. Well, the pauses are the most difficult because you can't just have him stop. You have to have just a slight movement so that it doesn't look like a dead puppet.
Lucas Light and Magic figured out something called go motion. And it was basically these puppets that had fake metal skeleton to give themselves their flexibility, but also make it very easy to move them back. The mechanism was set up so that when they moved a little bit, they would also shake back and forth like tiny vibrations as they were capturing the photo, rather than creating still image of, say, an AT-AT robot's leg moving slowly and then the other leg moving over the course of 100 images. And if you isolate each image, it's a clearly visible image of the AT-AT frozen in time. Instead, you would see a blur. Whatever was moving was a blur. Wouldn't work as a photo, but you're not making a photo, you're making a film. And when you put that all together, it makes a much smoother transition. And that's why around the 70s onwards, you started seeing this much smoother version of stop motion that didn't have the jankiness, but it does still have a quality, like the giant robot enforcer thing from RoboCop.
Yes, yeah.
It still has some weird quality to it. It always strikes you as that's not real. Maybe even a lot of people more than CGI would. But there's something about it I just love. Like I love in RoboCop where you see the big life-size still version and then it cuts to the wide shot. And if you look really closely, you're like, that's not a real office. That desk is actually like a little model and that's not the real thing. It's now moving with this weird motion.
Yeah, the problem is, if I was to see a stop motion using a film that I hadn't seen before, and it looked stuttery, a bit janky, I'd probably be like, okay, this is stop motion. Oh, I'll allow it. Because I appreciate the dedication to do the technique. Whereas I'll go back to Avatar, I fucking hate Avatar, man. I don't give a shit what anyone says. Like, so I remember at the time it came out, we have a mate called Ant Stotman. Best film ever made, man. And like, because he said it, I was like, oh, I can't be asked. It's kind of like Game of Thrones. Like, I didn't watch Game of Thrones when everyone was watching it, talking about it. And when I did watch it, I just felt like no connection with it. Like, do you remember when we went to that event and like there was all that 3D shit and I can't see 3D? You was like looking at it going, oh, this is amazing. And I was getting really wound up because I couldn't see it properly. It was just like too much sensory overload. And I'll never watch the second or third or fourth or however many he's going to do.
You know what? I started watching the second on the plane and it was I was like, this is pretty good. I was
Really?
into it. Yeah, I was kind of into it. Maybe because my expectations were so low. It's soulless to me is the problem. And again, it comes back to that thing where I look at Ray Harryhausen's skeletons and minotaurs and Medusa fighting with real actors that are made to look as if they're in the same area with each other by using overlays and mats. And I'm like, this is great. Like there's something about it where it's like this charm and this joy about it. And this authenticity about it, like, you know, you can reach out and touch it.
And I'm wondering about the sets that you animated this character within. Were they large sets usually?
Oh, well, they're mostly rear projection.
Okay.
They would photograph the live action first and then reduce it on a little projection screen behind the character and then animate to give the illusion that it was on the same plane as the characters in the projection. You sometimes had to use a mat in the foreground.
Another one that popped into my head, James and the Giant Peach.
Oh, fucking brilliant. I forgot about that.
I was kind of doing like some weird Roald Dahl kind of marathon. I was watching The Witches and I started watching James and the Giant Peach and I forgot how great that film is.
That's brilliant.
Fantastic film. And even from when it was released, the stop motion elements of it, in my opinion, still hold up. Correct.
Well, I mean, it can never not hold up because that's an animation. The whole film's an animation.
Yeah, true.
That's like saying, I mean, I guess you can say it, but you don't really say Snow White still holds up, do you?
But then again,
it's timeless in a way live action films from that era aren't.
But then again, if you watch early episodes of The Simpsons,
that's true.
Compared to like older ones, like especially the first series, the characters don't even look like the characters. The voices, for some reason, sound totally different. It just looks weird.
I agree, but the thing is, it's not like they were trying to draw what Homer Simpson became and trying to sound like what Homer Simpson became. He just became that over time because it's an animation. You can refine it and change it and do whatever you want. Now, if they were trying to draw it as well as they could, then I'd be like, yeah, it doesn't hold up because it looks like dog shit. It never held up. Like, that would never have been good. But it's animation. Like, you would never say the early South Parks don't hold up. They were meant to be shit. The Ray Harryhausen skeletons fighting Jason and the Argonauts that I keep going back to. Fingers crossed, if they could have, they would have looked like the best special effects ever. They would have looked exactly like a real skeleton moving about. They just couldn't do it. Whereas animation, you draw what you draw. It doesn't matter if it looks ridiculous or doesn't look proportioned or it sounds funny because that could be what you're trying to do. So I know what you mean. I'm being picky just to explore the idea of it.
I agree with you. You have to compare the examples with the limitations they had. It's kind of remiss and unfair to compare a stop motion effort like Coraline that they could do recently compared to Jason and the Argonauts. It's just unfair, isn't it, really?
But again, I don't know about that point because Jason and the Coraline is meant to look like stop motion. They're not trying to hide that they're stop motion. It's an animation. It's a cartoon. The skeletons were meant to look real. They're not going to be with the test audiences, sitting at the back being like, oh, no, because they've realized that's not a real girl. It's an animation. It's almost like a totally different side of the equation of talking about stop motion.
Test audiences could complain about anything, to be honest.
There's still a future for stop motion, potentially. Now, I would say it's only an animation, only as in making an animated film. But there was a film that came out a couple of years ago that was a labour of love by one of the absolute best stop motion guys. Storied career, amazing special effects, some incredible films, iconic moments. he spent over 20 years making this film in his own time. And the cool thing about it is there's not a single line of dialogue. And it's about a cloned android in a kind of cyberpunk future. He kind of looks like he could have fallen out of World War II. His android head is kind of like a World War II era gas mask. His clothes and weird suit and his mechanical bits look like they're instruments from World War II era. His outfit looks like it's been patched together by different uniforms and equipment from various World War II soldiers from different countries. And he descends into a bizarre underworld where he just meets freakier and freakier characters and monsters and creatures, and it is more of an experience. You know, you're not going to watch it and 10 minutes in be like, he's the killer, or oh, I know they're going to fall in love. There's no real plot to the film. There's a point, but there's no plot. It's a weird experience, zero dialogue, incredible visuals. He leans into the fact that it's stop motion with the characters, how they move. You know, he's dealing with not real creatures. It's not like an elephant stop motion character walks out. In your head, you're like, I know that's not how an elephant moves. It's these weird mechanical and mutated creatures and stuff. So it sells it better. But it's also, it made me realize like, wow, like it will almost definitely never happen because stop motion's really expensive, really time consuming, and there's not a mainstream appetite for it. But there's so much potential there. If it could have the same kind of freedom anime has to be ultra violent, ultra adult, sexual contact, weirder stuff than you can get away in actual live action films because it's less offensive and disturbing to people when it's cartoon characters doing it, then you'd see some incredible stuff.
Probably my favourite stop motion film, Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Oh, fucking great film.
Before I saw Fantastic Mr. Fox, do you know when rumours come out about stuff and you're like reading, I don't know, like Empire magazine, or you see the tweets that go out, Wes Anderson's next project will be Roald Dahl's Fantastic Mr. Fox, and it'll be a stop motion film. And I just went, this is going to be fucking class.
You'd never have guessed it, that he would do something like that, but when you hear it, it's like, of course he would. That makes perfect sense. I'd love it if he just adapted Roald Dahl for the rest of his career now.
The way they moved was obviously so clearly stop motion, but it was deliberately done, made it have a certain quirkiness and charm, which really is Wes Anderson. It wasn't polished stop motion that I've seen in other films, but that's what I found so amazing. Certain scenes, Fantastic Mr. Fox has talked about the wolf for the whole film, and then he's driving on his motorbike, and then he looks to his right, and in the field, the wolf's there. Like that.
And it actually becomes like a traditional drawing animation style to show the wolf in amongst the stop motion, and it just works seamlessly. It's funny because a lot of the issues with stop motion that we already talked about, you know, the jankiness of the movement, the way someone will be moving about, and when they do stop, it doesn't look right. You know, like if you see an elephant stopping, it stops completely still, but without even realizing you're seeing it, you see 100 different muscles do a slight bit of movement to coordinate that stop as it kind of resettles its body. Whereas a stop motion character just stops dead and then just kind of looks ahead, which is exactly the kind of stuff characters do in live action Wes Anderson films, you know. There's a lot of looking dead at the camera and then unnaturally turning in a perfect angle to talk to someone and then turning back to the camera. And then that person will turn to them and say something. There's this weird choreographed sort of movement that characters have in the films, and it perfectly suits stop motion in a way I would never have really thought of until seeing him make a stop motion film. And I actually think it's arguably his best film.
Then he done Isle of Dogs.
Oh, great film.
And even though they're both stop motion, I found like the Isle of Dogs technique used in it, in my opinion, was like a lot more polished. It didn't have the charming aesthetic. It didn't have that charm and quirkiness of like the way the characters moved.
So on a technical level, they did something different.
I'm going to say yes, but I can't explain what that technical...
That's fine. You don't need to be able to explain why, but you mean literally in subtle ways, it wasn't the same kind of stop motion?
The environments where they're in are like a lot more polished. The way the characters moved in it seemed a lot less jumpy and...
It was smoother.
Yeah, it was smoother.
I wonder if they used go motion for Isle of Dogs and they hadn't done that for whatever reason in the first one.
Stop motion, for some reason, just really fits into Roald Dahl. The subject matter of it, the author as a person, and the stop motion, it's just like the perfect marriage. It's like Messi and Barcelona. Do you know what I mean? And I can't explain why, again. But
yeah, I guess it's kind of how stop motion, it's got an almost slight disturbing vibe to it, even when it's like a kid's film or whatever. You know, when you see a real human character in stop motion, it always kind of looks a bit odd. It doesn't look right. You're like, that's a stop motion dude or woman. Like, it never quite looks right. Whereas if you have like a stop motion zombie or a skeleton head or a Mr. Jack-o'-lantern from A Nightmare Before Christmas, it just looks physically perfectly suited. Nothing seems wrong in your mind. You almost don't look at it like it's an animation. Everything's in alignment. You know, there's something disturbing about stop motion, and there's also something really charming, which kind of matches Roald Dahl. Like, when you think of Roald Dahl is really sarky, really witty, really charming, but also very dark. Even into the 90s, stop motion was used a lot less, but not because there'd been a replacement. It just wasn't used as much. You went through a weird period in the late 80s, early 90s where there was a lot of guy in the suit or the animatronic, and that's all they would have. So there'd be a lot of close-ups and then really wide shots of the thing, and you wouldn't really see a lot of it. And you didn't really get those medium, let's actually get a real look at whatever the fuck this special effect is, creature, alien, monster, spaceship, whatever. You wouldn't see much of that. When Jurassic Park rolled around, Steven Spielberg was like, nah, obviously, at least for certain moments, I need a proper wide shot, getting everything in frame of the different dinosaurs going about their dinosaur business, you know, velociraptors spilling people's intestines on the floor, T-Rex eating some goats, brontosauruses just chilling, having that happy gormless cow face as they're chewing on leaves. So he recruited the best stop motion people in the world.
The reactions from Steven Spielberg, from Michael Crichton, from anyone who would walk in and see the process was always excitement. You get jazzed, you get high, you go, whoa, it's really coming alive.
Little clay figures of dinosaurs and people that would completely imitate my storyboards, but flesh out my storyboards and give them dimension.
And you can actually still see some of the test footage of the raptors and of the T-Rex using stop motion and using like the latest version of Go Motion 20 years after the second Star Wars film where it improved. And it looks really good, but Steven Spielberg kind of had the same feeling as me where he looked at it and he was like, yeah, I guess that's pretty good, but I don't want to put it in my film.
The plan called for all wide shots to be done with Phil Tippett's Go Motion technique, a modern extension of traditional stop-motion animation.
Phil Tippett had perfected the motion blur, which gave Go Motion a closer resemblance to real life. But it wasn't 100%. It was still jerky. And Phil did a whole bunch of wonderful blur motions on a T-Rex running, on a raptor running. I come home with my kids and look at this stuff over and over and over again. And my kids bought it. They said, wow, Dad, a real dinosaur. But I still saw the jerk.
He kept giving them more chances and they go back to the drawing board. And it actually advanced stop motion quite a lot because it was the first massive budget film in a long time wanting to use stop motion. And, you know, whereas other studios would just be like, stop fucking around, schedule to keep, just go use this special effect. Spielberg could do what he wanted, so he could be patient, letting them experiment and trying to find ways to make it better. And they refined it and made it look better, more to his liking, but it was never enough. He was going to film it as part of the production, but he was going to leave it up to the point of post-production in the editing room to decide if he would actually use it or not. And then some random computer geek guy who was working on the film kind of said, I reckon I can do it. Give me a couple of weeks. Let me give you a little test footage. He came back with a CGI T-Rex just walking in a completely black, empty void space. There wasn't much detail on it, but instantly you could see that doesn't look real in a different way. But what you're seeing is something you've never seen before in film. The muscle as you see it moving, even though you know you can't reach out and touch that, it looks so real. It looks true. It looks like that is the way you'd see the tendons and different muscle bands pulling and moving about under the leathery, scaly skin of a T-Rex. And the rest was history. Spielberg scrapped all of the stop motion. This was literally all the godfathers of stop motion who were working on the film. And basically all of them knew pretty much instantly that their whole career, their whole passion and love the thing they'd done for years and devoted their life to, was dead. It would never have a place in the industry after this.
I've never seen movements this smooth outside of looking at National Geographic documentaries. But I didn't dare call Phil up at that time and say, hey, Phil, we'd like to, replace what you were going to do on the film. Creating 100 shots with the best go motion ever done in history with CGI. I didn't have the heart to do that then because I wasn't completely convinced until I saw a fleshed dinosaur outside in the worst harsh sunlight.
Then everyone saw the potential. Now you could see a real physical animal, his skin moving, him breathing, his muscles bulging, all that kind of stuff.
When I saw that, and Phil saw that with me for the first time, and there we were watching our future unfolding on the TV screen, so authentic I couldn't believe my eyes, and it blew my mind again. And I turned to Phil, and Phil looked at me, and Phil said, I think I'm extinct.
I call it a Zeus complex because the ancient Greeks used to think the gods manipulated their life down on the earth, and the gods were just big people, looking down and saying, you go there and you go there, and this is your destiny. So perhaps I have a Zeus complex.